The courtroom was quiet enough to hear my brother breathe. Conrad sat 3 feet away, picking at a loose thread on his cuff, smiling like a man who had already won the lottery twice. Beside him, his lawyer flipped through a thin binder, looking bored. They believed this was over before it began. They believed I was the angry sister, with no proof, no plan, and no power. They were wrong about all three. The bailiff opened the back door. A man in a charcoal suit walked in, holding a leather folder under his arm. His shoes were polished. His face was calm. He stopped at the witness stand, raised his right hand, and looked straight at me. The judge asked, "Sir, please state your full name and your relationship to anyone in this room." The man lowered his hand. He did not look at Conrad. He did not look at the lawyer. He looked at me, gave a small nod, and said, "Your Honor, my name is Damon Axel. I am the buyer named on the deed. And the woman sitting at the plaintiff's table is my boss." Conrad's smile cracked down the middle, like ice on a thawing river. The room went still. "My name is Naomi Walker. I am 37 years old, and I run a property holding firm here in the city, a small empire I built from one rental house and a mountain of bad coffee. Before I dive into what happened next, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Also, drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone is tuning in from." Alright, back to the story. 6 weeks before that courtroom, I had no plans of suing anyone. I was on my second pot of black coffee, reading a balance sheet at 4 in the morning, when my phone lit up. A nurse from St. Aurelia's Hospital. My mother had collapsed in her kitchen. A small stroke, the kind that steals a few words and leaves the rest of you scrambling to find them. I drove 80 miles in slippers. By sunrise, I was holding her hand. By noon, my brother Conrad finally arrived, breath smelling like last night's whiskey, eyes already wandering the hallway like a man counting tiles. He hugged the doctor. He did not hug me. He asked, before he asked how she was, "So who's handling her house while she's stuck here?" That was my first warning, and I missed it. The hospital smelled of bleach and burnt toast. My mother slept under a thin blue blanket, her hand light as a folded letter in mine. The monitor beeped a soft, patient rhythm. I stayed in that chair through 3 shift changes. Conrad stayed 20 minutes. He came back the next afternoon with his wife Bethany. She wore sunglasses indoors and sighed at every nurse. She squeezed my mother's foot, said "Poor Eleanor," then asked me where the cafeteria was. They left within the hour. That night, in the parking lot, Conrad leaned against my car. He had a cigarette he did not light. He said, "Look, Mimi, Mom's not coming back to that big house. 2 stories, a yard, the basement steps. It's a death trap. We need to be smart." I told him we would talk when she woke up. He smiled the way he used to smile when he stole my homework and watched me cry. "Sure," he said, "when she wakes up." I drove home in silence, the heater rattling, the city lights smeared by tired eyes. I did not know yet that the word "smart" in my brother's mouth was always the same word as steal. The proof would come, and it would come fast. The next Sunday, Bethany posted a picture from inside my mother's living room. Captions never lie about people, they just failed to know they're talking. Hers read, "Family pulling together in tough times. Big plans coming." 47 likes from women I had never met. I called Conrad. He laughed. He always laughed first before anything bad. "Relax, Mimi. Beth's redoing the den. Mom would want it cheerful." "Mom is in a hospital bed, Conrad. She does not need a new den. She needs her son to visit her." "You always make it about feelings." The line went dead. I drove to the house that night. The locks had been changed. A small brass key gleamed in the porch light, but it was not the key in my purse. I stood there in the cold, holding the key my mother had given me at 16, and I felt a kind of quiet that is louder than any shout. Through the window, I could see Bethany, glass of wine in hand, pointing at the wall, planning. Conrad stood behind her, nodding. They did not see me. They did not need to. The weight of inevitability hung in the night air, crushing all doubt. I drove home, pulled out my laptop, and ran my brother's name through every public records database I had access to. By 2 in the morning, I had 3 documents I was not supposed to have. The way a CEO of a property firm always has 3 documents she is not supposed to have. One was a freshly filed power of attorney. A signature on it claimed to be my mother's. The handwriting did not match a single grocery list I had saved on my fridge. The second was a listing draft, prepped but not yet public, for the family home. Asking price, $480,000. The market value was at least $700,000. My brother was not selling the house. He was bleeding it. The third document was a text thread, leaked into a brokerage system by mistake, between Conrad and a man named Spencer Rourke. Spencer was a realtor who had lost his license once and bought it back with a different middle initial. They were calling the deal Operation Easy Mom. I read that line 3 times. Then I made coffee I would not drink, its steam rising like a ghost of choices never taken. I sat very still, the way you sit when grief and rage decide to share the same chair. At sunrise, I called my own attorney, Penelope Nelson. I did not yell. I was calm like the eye of a storm, holding back the fury that threatened to consume everything. I said, I need a quiet trap. Build me one. Penelope was the kind of lawyer who took notes in pencil because pens, she said, made people lie better. She listened for 40 minutes without a single question. Then she asked one. Does your brother know what your company actually does? I almost laughed. Conrad had spent 30 years describing my career as Naomi plays Monopoly with rich people. He had no idea I owned the board. Walker Acquisitions held a portfolio of 112 properties. We bought distressed real estate, fixed it, and either rented or resold. The face of every deal was never me. It was always one of my acquisition leads. Then we let him sell it, Penelope said. To you. To me through a person he has never met. Exactly. We let him commit the fraud all the way through. We let him sign, accept the money, and walk away grinning. The deeper he steps, the harder he falls. I thought of my mother, asleep under a thin blue blanket. I thought of Bethany in the den, glass in hand. I thought of Operation Easy Mom. I said, make it airtight. Penelope almost smiled. She put down the pencil. I'll need your best buyer, the one who can sit across from a snake and not blink. I picked up the phone and called Damon Axel. Damon Axel was 29 years old, 3 years out of business school, and the calmest negotiator I had ever hired. He once bought a 6-unit building from a man who was halfway through screaming at him. He did not raise his voice once. He drank his lukewarm tea, asked 2 questions, and the man signed by the 3rd sip. I told him the situation in my office at 6 in the morning. Pastries no one would eat. Coffee no one had asked for. So your brother is selling your mother's house, he said. Yes. With a forged power of attorney, yes. And you want me to be the buyer? Yes. He thought for half a minute. The clock on my wall ticked 7 times. Boss, he said finally, if I do this, we don't just save the house, we make sure he can never do this to anyone again. That is exactly what I want. He nodded. Then he allowed himself the smallest smile, the kind that lives at the corner of a very serious mouth. I'll need a different car. Mine has a Walker Acquisitions sticker on the back window. I told him to take the company card and disappear for the afternoon. By Tuesday, Damon Axel was a stranger. Damon called Spencer Rourke from a burner number on a Wednesday. He played the role beautifully. A young investor from out of town, looking for a fixer in the area. Cash buyer. Quick close. No questions about the seller's situation. He even threw in a little bored sigh. The universal sound of a man with too much money and too little time. Spencer bit so hard the line bent. By Thursday, Damon had a private viewing. By Friday, he had been introduced to the seller's representative, a man named Conrad, who arrived 10 minutes late, wearing a watch he could not afford. Conrad shook Damon's hand and said, Family situation, you know how it is. Mom's not doing great. We're trying to make things easier for her. Bless her heart. Damon nodded with the perfect amount of sympathy. I understand completely. I lost my grandmother last year. It was a lie. His grandmother was alive in Pune, 91, and still played chess every Sunday. By Saturday, Conrad signed a private offer for $440,000, even less than the listing draft. He had panicked at the smell of cash. He wanted it fast. Every step was being recorded, archived, and time-stamped. Conrad did not know he was already dead. The next family dinner was at Conrad's. I went because Penelope told me to. He needs to feel safe, she said. He needs to feel above you. Let him. I sat through the prayer. I sat through the chicken. I sat through Bethany's long story about a bar instructor who did not recognize her name. Then Conrad tapped his glass with a fork. He stood. He looked at me with that same homework-stealing smile. Big news, family, he said. I closed a deal this week, a real one. Mom's place, off our backs, money in the family. We can finally breathe. Bethany clapped, slow and theatrical. We've been carrying this for so long, she said, looking at me. Some of us more than others. I sipped my water. How wonderful, I said. Did you talk to Mom about it? Conrad waved his hand. Mom's not in a state to talk numbers, Mimi. I've got the paperwork. I'm her son. It's handled. Of course, I said. Family is family. He laughed. He laughed so hard, he choked a little on his wine. He thought he was winning. I smiled at him across the table, the kind of smile he should have learned to fear. He did not learn. Bethany posted 3 things over the next 10 days, and each one was a gift-wrapped piece of evidence. The first was a video tour of our new investment property, which was my mother's living room with the curtains pulled back. She tagged it, before content, with a winking emoji. 40,000 views. Realtors started commenting numbers. The second was a story about finally taking the trip we deserve. Aerial shot of a private villa in Tulum. Caption, family wealth, finally working for the family. She left the booking confirmation visible in the corner of one frame. The third was the worst for her. It was a voice note she accidentally posted to her public story instead of a friend's DM. In it, she laughed and said, Conrad's sister is sweet, but she has no idea. She thinks she's the smart one. We're literally about to clear $500,000 off her watch. I'm dying. Damon called me at 11 that night. Boss, he said, she just gave us audio. I asked Penelope if it was admissible. She said, in her careful pencil voice, anything posted publicly by a party in interest is admissible. Bethany just put a noose around her own husband's neck and called it a vacation post. 2 weeks into the plan, my mother opened her eyes properly. Not the dim, half-present blink of the early days. The real Eleanor, with her sharp gray eyes and her crooked left smile. She squeezed my hand and asked for water. Then she asked for her glasses. Then she asked very softly, how's the porch swing? Is the chain still loose? My mother. 3 weeks in a hospital, half her words still searching for the door, and the first thing she worried about was the porch swing she sat on every June. I lied gently. I told her the swing was fine. I told her the lavender by the steps was blooming. I did not tell her that her son had handed her front door key to a stranger. The doctor said she could go home in 4 to 6 weeks if she progressed. Home. The word fell on me like a small, clean rock. I drove from the hospital to Penelope's office without stopping. I told her, we do not wait, we file before Mom is discharged. She will not return to a stripped house and a brother smiling at her with stolen money. Penelope nodded. We were ready 3 days ago. Then file it tomorrow. Tomorrow is good, she said. Tomorrow is very good. On a clear Wednesday morning, a process server knocked on Conrad's door at 6:57. He delivered 3 sealed envelopes. Conrad signed for them in his bathrobe, the same blue robe he had worn at his wedding morning 12 years before. The first envelope was a civil complaint. Eleanor Walker versus Conrad Walker for fraud and abuse of a vulnerable adult. The second envelope was a temporary restraining order, freezing the $440,000 in his escrow account. The third envelope was a notice that the buyer, one Damon Axel, had joined the suit with a sworn affidavit attached. By 7:15, Conrad had called me 41 times. By 7:30, he was banging on my front door. I did not open it. I made coffee. I watched him through the camera on my porch, growing redder, sweatier, more honest than I had seen him in a decade. He shouted, "You snake, Naomi! You set me up! You set me up!" I sipped my coffee. I said into the microphone of the doorbell camera, "No, Conrad, you set yourself up. I just held the door open." He kicked the door once. The camera caught that too. Then he drove off, screaming into his phone. Within 24 hours, Conrad hired a new lawyer, a man named Benson Chestnut, whose office had a fish tank, but no fish. The tank held plastic plants and a small ceramic castle. I'm not making that up. Benson Chestnut sent a letter to Penelope, threatening to countersue for emotional damages and family defamation. Penelope printed it, framed it, and hung it next to her diploma. She does that with letters she finds funny. Conrad tried Mom next. He visited the hospital. He pushed a paper at her, asking her to sign that the original power of attorney was real, and that she was not pursuing a case against him. He did not know Mom's nurse, a retired teacher named Yolanda, had been told by the hospital's social worker to log every family visit. He did not know there were 3 cameras in that wing for patient safety. He did not know that shoving a clipboard at an 81-year-old stroke patient was the kind of thing a judge writes about in a ruling. Mom did not sign. She looked at the paper with her sharp gray eyes. She looked at her son. She said very slowly, "Conrad, get out of my room." He did. He kicked a tray on the way. Yolanda recorded all of it. Spencer Rourke, the realtor with the recycled license, smelled trouble the moment a subpoena hit his office. He tried to fly to Costa Rica. He made it as far as the airport gate before a polite young woman with a state seal on her clipboard asked him to step aside. He was not arrested that day. He was just delayed. Long enough for him to miss his flight, lose his deposit, and start sweating through his linen shirt. By the next morning, Spencer's lawyer had called Penelope. "What do we need to do," he said, "for our client to walk?" Penelope said, "He testifies. He hands over every text, every email, every voice memo with Conrad Walker. He admits, on the record, that he knew the power of attorney was forged. He explains on the record what Operation Easy Mom meant." The lawyer asked, "And in return?" "In return," Penelope said, "your client gets to stay out of a fraud charge. He still loses his license, this time forever, but he keeps his Tuesdays free." Spencer signed within an hour. That night, Damon brought me a thumb drive. "Boss," he said, "you want to read this in one sitting or chapters?" I poured 2 glasses of bourbon. "Chapters," I said. "I want to enjoy it." The texts on Spencer's drive read like a confession someone forgot to seal. Conrad to Spencer, 87 days before Mom's stroke. "Mom keeps mixing up months. Doctor says she's fine, but I'm watching it." Spencer back, "Anything in writing, old emails we can use later?" "I'll start collecting, slow drip, sister can't notice." Conrad, 4 hours after the stroke, "It's go time, she's in the hospital, get me a notary who doesn't ask questions." "Got one, cash only." Conrad, 2 days later, "Don't list yet, sister sniffs around, need a private buyer." Spencer, "I'll find a young investor, out of town, greedy." Conrad, the night Damon signed, "Did it? Easy. Sister suspects nothing. Operation Easy Mom is officially closed. Drinks Friday." I read those messages with one hand wrapped around a glass and the other one shaking. I held back my tears. The grief had moved out of my eyes and gone somewhere deeper and quieter. Damon waited. He always waited. He did not fill silence the way most people did. Finally I said, "Damon?" "Yes, boss." "Bring all of it to court. Every word. Every voice note." He nodded. "Already in 3 folders. Indexed. Color-coded. Penelope has the originals." I lifted my glass. "To color coding." He clinked it. "To Mom." The court date was set for the 3rd Monday of the month. We had 11 days. Mom was discharged on the 7th of those days, and I drove her home in a car I had cleaned twice. I had not let her see the inside of the house. I had a small army of cleaners restore the den Bethany had wrecked. The mauve paint went back to cream. The chandelier Bethany had ordered was returned. The porch swing chain was tightened. The lavender was watered. Mom walked in slowly, leaning on her cane. She stood in the front hall. She looked at the photographs on the wall. She looked at the quilt on the back of the couch, the one she had stitched in 1989. She looked at me. "Where is your brother?" she asked. "He is not here, Mom. He will not be here for a while." She nodded. She did not ask why. Mothers know things before they ask. She sat in her armchair. She breathed out the long breath of a woman returning to her own body. Then she said, "Naomi, baby." "Yes, Mom." "Whatever he did, do not be soft." I knelt in front of her. I held both her hands. "Mom," I said, "soft was never the plan." 2 days before court, a reporter from the local paper called my office. Someone had leaked the case to her. She was hungry. A son scamming his stroke patient mother out of a family home in a city already angry about housing prices. The story wrote itself. I did not give a quote. Penelope was firm. "We win the case first. We win the public after." But Bethany could not stop herself. Bethany gave a quote. Bethany gave 3 quotes, to 3 different platforms. "We are being persecuted by a jealous sister." That was the first. "Eleanor wanted my husband to handle the property. This is all a misunderstanding." That was the second. "Naomi has always been the difficult one. She has never put family first." That was the third. By the time the 3rd quote went up, the comments had turned. People who had never met us posted screenshots of Bethany's vacation videos next to her new Poor Me speeches. Someone made a side-by-side video set to sad piano music. It hit 2 million views in a day. Conrad's wellness coaching brand lost half its clients in 72 hours. Bethany deleted her account. She rebuilt it, private, the next morning. Too late. The night before the hearing, I sat in the kitchen of my mother's house. Mom was upstairs, asleep with her sharp gray eyes shut and her hands folded over the quilt. The kitchen clock ticked. The fridge hummed. The street outside was quiet. Damon came over with 2 folders and a thermos of chai. He set everything on the kitchen table. He did not speak for a while. Then he said, "Boss, are you nervous?" "No." "Are you sad?" I thought about it. A little, but the sad is not the loud part. He nodded. He poured chai into 2 mugs. We drank in silence. The cardamom was strong. He had made it the way his grandmother in Pune had taught him, the alive grandmother, the chess grandmother. After a while he said, "When the judge calls me, what do you want me to do?" I looked at him. The kitchen light was warm on his face. "I want you to walk in like you walk into our office every morning. Calm, quiet, polite. Then I want you to look at me, and I want you to say my name, and I want you to call me boss, not Miss Walker, not the plaintiff. Boss." He smiled. The serious mouth, the small corner. "Yes, boss." The morning of court, my mother insisted on coming. She wore her cream blouse, her pearl earrings, and the cardigan I had bought her for Christmas 3 years ago. She refused the wheelchair. She walked into the courthouse on her cane, head up, eyes ahead. Bethany was already there, in a dress 2 sizes too tight and a scarf 2 seasons too late. She tried to make eye contact. Mom walked past her like she was a coat rack. Conrad sat at the defendant's table next to Benson Chestnut. He had lost weight, the kind of weight a man loses when he has stopped sleeping. His suit hung off him. His hands shook when he poured himself water. He saw Mom. He half stood. He opened his mouth. "Don't," Mom said. Just the one word. She did not slow her walk. He sat back down. He did not look up again until the judge entered. The Honorable Virgil Cavendish took the bench. He was 66 years old, built like a quiet bulldog, known for 2 things. He hated lying. And he hated lawyers who wasted his Mondays. He looked at the case file. He looked at Mom. He looked at Conrad. He let the silence stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable. Then he said, "Counsel, call your first witness." Penelope called Yolanda. The retired teacher walked to the stand in sensible shoes. She raised her right hand. She told the truth in the calm voice of a woman who had taught 3rd grade for 29 years. She described the day Conrad came in with the clipboard, his tone, how he leaned over the bed, how Mom said, "Conrad, get out of my room," the kicked tray. Benson Chestnut tried to cross-examine her. He asked if Yolanda might have misunderstood. He asked if the patient might have been confused. Yolanda smiled at him, patient as a saint, sharp as a blade. She said, "Sir, I taught 3rd graders for 29 years. I know exactly what a tantrum looks like. I saw a tantrum that day. It was not the patient throwing one." The gallery laughed. Cavendish hammered the gavel once, but his mouth twitched. Penelope played the security footage. The kicked tray rattled across the screen. Conrad winced. Then Penelope called Spencer Rourke. He shuffled in, gray, sweating, eyes glued to his shoes. He took the oath in a voice like a deflating tire. He told everything, the notary, the texts, the young, greedy, out-of-town buyer. Operation Easy Mom. Conrad's face went the color of old paper. Benson Chestnut requested a recess. Cavendish said no. "Counsel, call your next witness," Cavendish said. Penelope stood. She buttoned her jacket. She did not look at Conrad. She did not look at Benson Chestnut. She said, "Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Damon Axel, the buyer of record." Conrad's head snapped up. He turned to Benson Chestnut. Benson Chestnut shrugged with his entire body, which is the universal lawyer signal for, "I have no idea what is happening." The bailiff opened the back door. A man in a charcoal suit walked in, holding a leather folder under his arm. His shoes were polished. His face was calm. He stopped at the witness stand, raised his right hand, and looked straight at me. The judge asked, "Sir, please state your full name and your relationship to anyone in this room." Damon lowered his hand. He did not look at Conrad. He did not look at Benson Chestnut. He looked at me, gave a small nod, and said, "Your Honor, my name is Damon Axel. I am the buyer named on the deed, and the woman sitting at the plaintiff's table is my boss." Conrad's smile, if you could call it that, cracked. The room went still. Benson Chestnut whispered to him urgently, asking what the man meant. Conrad did not answer. He could not. Mom squeezed my hand, hard. Damon explained slowly that he was the vice president of acquisitions at Walker Holdings, a property firm I had founded 12 years ago. He explained that I had personally instructed him to enter the transaction. He explained that every step had been recorded, archived, and reviewed by counsel for the purpose of preserving evidence in a suspected fraud. He produced his employment contract. He produced the operation memo. He produced the time-stamped emails. He produced the bank records showing that the $440,000 had moved from a Walker Holdings reserve account through Damon's personal account into the escrow Conrad had set up. In other words, Penelope asked, "You, Mr. Axel, were never an unaffiliated, out-of-town private investor." "No, ma'am." "You were on the clock." "Yes, ma'am." "And the seller, Mr. Conrad Walker, transferred title to you under the belief that he was selling to a stranger using a power of attorney whose signature is, according to 2 forensic experts retained by us, demonstrably forged." "Yes, ma'am." Benson Chestnut stood up. "Your Honor, this is entrapment." Cavendish looked at him over his glasses. "Counsel, sit down. Entrapment is a defense in criminal cases. This is civil. The alleged fraud predates Mr. Axel's involvement. Sit down." Benson Chestnut sat. Hard. Conrad's last hope was Bethany, he whispered to Benson Chestnut. Benson Chestnut rose, voice thinner than before. "Your Honor, the defense calls Bethany Walker." Bethany walked to the stand the way a woman walks to a stage. She fluffed her hair, she adjusted her scarf, she smiled. Penelope did not smile back. Penelope pulled out a manila folder. Penelope laid out one by one the screenshots, the before content video, the Tulum villa, the voice note that called my mother's house $500,000 off her watch. Bethany's smile slipped a quarter inch with every page. Penelope asked, "Mrs. Walker, when you said, quote, Conrad's sister is sweet, but she has no idea, we're literally about to clear $500,000 off her watch. Who were you referring to?" Bethany's mouth opened. Bethany's mouth closed. She tried. "I was joking." "Was the planned profit on this house a joke?" "No." "Was the source of that profit a joke?" "No." "Was your husband's mother, who had recently suffered a stroke, a joke to you, Mrs. Walker?" The gallery sucked in a breath. Bethany's eyes filled. She tried to gather her dignity from the wreckage. She failed. Cavendish told her to step down. She stepped down. She did not look at her husband. Conrad did not look at her either. Cavendish took 2 days to write the ruling. 2 days during which Bethany's father called my office and asked very politely if I would consider settling. I told him to ask Conrad that question. The ruling came on a Thursday morning. It was 9 pages. Penelope read it to me twice. Once for the law and once for the music. The court found that the power of attorney was forged. The sale was void. Title returned to my mother. The $440,000 was returned to Walker Holdings, plus interest, plus my legal fees. The court referred the matter to the district attorney for criminal review. Spencer Rourke was named as a cooperating witness, which spared him a charge, but not his license forever. Conrad was named as the principal. The DA picked it up within a week. He was charged with elder financial abuse, forgery, and conspiracy. His wellness brand collapsed. His house was foreclosed within 90 days. Bethany filed for divorce. She lost the divorce too, because the prenup she had signed in 2013 was airtight. A reporter asked me on the courthouse steps what I thought of the verdict. I said, "I think my mother gets to sit on her porch swing this June." Then I helped Mom into the car. June came. The lavender bloomed. The porch swing chain held. My mother sat in the swing with a glass of iced tea and the same crooked smile she had worn at my college graduation. She did not talk about Conrad, not once. Some doors, when they close, close all the way. Damon visited that Sunday. He brought his own grandmother, the alive one, the chess one. She was small as a sparrow and quick as a hawk. She and Mom played 3 games of chess on the porch table. Mom won 2. The grandmother said, in her gentle voice, "Eleanor, you cheat very politely." Mom laughed, the first real laugh I had heard in months. I sat on the steps and watched them. I thought about Conrad in his small rented apartment on the other side of town. I thought about Bethany, alone, posting nothing. I thought about Operation Easy Mom and how the easiest thing in the world is to underestimate the wrong person. Then Mom called my name. She held out her hand. She said, "Sit with me, Naomi." I sat. The swing creaked. The chain held. Now tell me, would you have set the trap? Or would you have just changed the locks and walked away? Drop your answer in the comments. If this story stirred something deep within you, let your voice be heard in the comments. And if you've ever had to rise from the ashes or are still quietly piecing your life back together, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Hit subscribe, leave a like, and stay close for the next story.